Alright, ladies and gentlemen, we are back in the mix again. We're ready. We're ready to go over some more sales to help you guys find some new things to source. So, stay tuned and enjoy. Welcome to Over the Years. My name is Tim, and I love vintage items. I hunt for treasures and bring you the ultimate prizes of antiques, collectibles, and vintage decor. Join me, my dukes, my girlfriend Josie, and other guests as we search for history. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video. My name is Tim. This is Over the Years. If this is your first time here, I am a full-time reseller on 6 platforms, pretty much 7 because I started doing a little Facebook marketplace. Hopefully I'm going to have a video for you guys on that soon. But I sell on eBay, Etsy, Mercari, Poshmark, Grailed, and Depop. So, we've been trying to catch you guys up on our sales. We've been super busy. So now I'm about ready to drop the sales for you guys. I don't even remember. Let me double check what dates these are for. These sales, I believe, are from July 20th to July 26th. So we're going to go over these sales for you guys, and hopefully by doing this, you guys are able to pick up some information on some new things that you might not necessarily already be looking for that can help you in your reselling business. So we're going to go ahead and start this party off with a couple of Poshmark sales. So let's check out Poshmark. All right. So we did make a couple of sales on Poshmark. The first thing that sold on Poshmark during this time period was this excuse me, this really dope Dallas hat. Now, I don't know if it was like Dallas the city, Dallas the TV show, Dallas the stripper, I'm not sure. But it was a really cool hat. It was like navy blue, and it had the pink script across the front of it, and it had the rope right here on the hat, which is always pretty dope as well. And so I've actually had this hat for a long time. I've had a couple of people make really low offers, but I finally sold to a buyer, and it sold for $20 on Poshmark. The next thing that sold was this really dope Tommy Hilfiger button-up shirt, long sleeve. It had like the 90s like alternating color block scheme going on. I got this in a vintage box of mystery clothes from one of my boys, and it had a little bit like of I don't know if it was like a stain, just wear or what on the sleeve, but I pointed it out. But it still sold for $30, and the buyer got it and gave us a 5-star review, so that's always dope. So those are the two things that sold on Poshmark during this time period. So now we're going to jump into eBay. All right, so eBay sales, we're going to start off with a banger of a sale. So this was a hat that I got in the first lot of hats that I picked up, and it was pretty crazy. If you haven't seen that unboxing of hats, I'm going to put a link up top for you guys. I did it with Cernock, and I'll never forget his reaction when I pulled this hat out. So this hat, it has a little bit of everything as far as like what you're looking for in vintage trucker hats. So 3 stripes on the sides, which is a big thing. If you remember, if you watch the videos, I always talk about the 3 stripes. So this had the 3 stripes. It had the big graphic on the front, Levi Garrett Racing. And then it was a K Products hat. And you can find those K Products hats. You want to look on the inside of the snapbacks to identify the maker sometimes when there's no tag. So this hat actually went out to one of my boys, so shout out to my man Scotty Booms on the purchase. This was a vintage 80s Levi Garrett Racing, 3 stripes. And I messed up on the title. It says 3 strips. 3 stripes, K Products, trucker hat, snapback, USA. And it sold for $147.99 plus shipping. So the second thing that sold on eBay, this actually went out to a viewer. So big shout out to the homie, Chubby Uncle Rico is his name on YouTube. I appreciate the support, my man. He had heard me talk about selling this, and he had hit me up, and he was like, yo, when you list this, let me know. You know, I'm definitely interested in it. So as soon as I listed it, I hit him up, and then he bought it. So just want to give a big shout out to Chubby Uncle Rico for the purchase and the support. I picked this up with a lot of stuff from my old baseball and football coach in high school. This was a vintage Marks tank number 5, 10 litho wind up turnover toy. So you wind it up and then it flips over, does all this crazy stuff. It's a really dope toy, and it was in really good condition considering how old it was. Now, you always want to be on the lookout for these tin toys, wind up toys, the litho toys. And after finding this, I did a little bit of research, and these Marks tanks can go for a lot of money. So I definitely is a name you want to be on the lookout for. And so this sold for $59.99 plus shipping. Next up was another piece of carnival glass. You guys know we are big into carnival glass. Shout out to my man Steve over at Pick and Roll. He hooked me up with a new carnival glass book, and I'm super grateful for that. Just wanted to give you another shout out. It's a really nice book too. So this was a vintage Imperial Glass Grape Marigold Ruffled Bowl, and it sold for $13.99 plus shipping. Next up was another hat. This is a vintage 80s Century Foods trucker hat, patch, snapback, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So Century was actually a grocery store in Wisconsin, and they have one in Milwaukee. So like I always try and look up the whatever's on the old hats and use the location in the title or in keywords, just because it, you know, is something that I believe helps makes these hats sell faster, or sell in general. So this hat sold for $23.99 plus shipping. Next up was this vintage Discman. It's unfortunate because this didn't work. If it was working condition, it probably would have sold for a lot more money. Nonetheless, I bought it for $2.99 at the thrift store, and it sold for $15 plus shipping. It was a vintage Seiko Instrumentals portable Discman, model number PHX-50CD. And yeah, so, you know, broken things sell. Don't ever forget that. Next up, oh man, this was really dope. So if you haven't seen the video of Josie and I on our road trip to Pennsylvania to go yard sailing, I'll put the link up top. We got this book basically for like $1. It was a antique Wedgwood World War I Liberty, China, and Queensware book. So basically this book was, there's only 1,000 copies of this book made, and it was given to people, I believe it was given to people that either made purchases of this china or donated money to make the china be made during World War I. So it was definitely super rare. It was in really good condition. It was super interesting. And I actually got some pieces of china with the book. So I decided to sell the book separately, and it sold for $75 plus shipping. Next up was another snapback hat. I actually had 2 of these. This is the second one that sold. This hat was sick. It's got big graphic all over. It's Dale Earnhardt. It's NASCAR. It's got the rope. It's snapback, made in USA. Vintage 90s, Dale Earnhardt, Winston Cup, champion, snapback, rope hat, made in the USA. Sold for $35.99 plus shipping. Next up was one of these little books. I got a bunch of these, and you'll start to see them. Not a bunch. I got like maybe like 6 or 7 from that same lot from my old coach, and you'll see them. That they pretty much have all sold now except for one. So you'll see them throughout these videos that continue to come out of what sold. This one was a vintage 1949 Red Rider and Circus Luck. It was the name of these little books are Better Little Books. And it sold for $14.99 plus shipping. This next piece was I've had it for a very long time, but it doesn't, I mean, yeah, it sucks I had it for so long, but it's definitely something that you want to keep an eye out. It might be a long tail item depending upon the piece, but this was a vintage Spode. Spode is the name of the maker. Trade Winds Red is the name of the pattern. And it was a dinner plate. It had scalloped edges and some gold trim. But anything in this pattern sells for really good money. Sometimes it might be easier to sell depending upon the piece, but this is definitely something you want to keep an eye out for. Because, I mean, this dinner plate sold for $79.99 plus shipping. So it was definitely a great sale. This was a little kid's hat. It was a pink train conductor hat, Black Hills Central Railroad, South Dakota. And it was pink and white striped. It was made in the USA, I believe. So it was a really nice hat for a kid or somebody with a really small head. So it sold for $14.39 plus shipping. Railroad hats, conductor looking hats, those things are definitely popular, so keep your eye out for those always. Redskins stuff continues to sell. It is very popular right now because of the name change. This was a vintage 1980s Washington Redskins logo 7 single stitch t-shirt made in the USA, size extra large, and it sold for $31.99 plus shipping. This was actually not brand new, but it was a fairly new pickup. It didn't take long to sell. This was a gorgeous teapot. If you guys know us and you watch the channel, Hall China is a big thing for us. It's because it's like everything else. It goes in these waves, but it's been doing really well lately, especially if you find these really nice Hall teapots. So this was a vintage Hall China. The name of the shape of the teapot was Los Angeles. It was a cobalt blue, was a color, and it had the gold design on it. It was a 6-cup teapot, and it sold for $34.99 plus shipping. Next, we have this Shenango China oval dish restaurant ware. Restaurant ware is always popular. I mean, anything in that sort of category, restaurant ware, hotel china, railroad china, anything along those lines is definitely popular. This was an older piece, and it sold for $25 plus shipping. Next up, we have this absolutely stunning piece of carnival glass. I got this at an auction, and I paid under $5 for it. It did have a chip on the base, or else it would have sold for a lot more money, but it was just gorgeous. It was a vintage Northwood glass. Aqua Opal was the name of the color, and then Fruits and Flowers was the name of the pattern, and it was a footed bonbon, which is the shape of the actual piece. And it sold for $125 plus shipping. So, just carnival glass, if you can find the old stuff and the very unique colors and patterns, the money is definitely there. I mean, this piece was just absolutely stunning. And we have another piece of Hall China. Autumn Leaf is probably one of the most likely patterns that you will be able to find sourcing, whether it be estate sales, thrift stores, flea markets, auctions. I got this piece for a couple of bucks, and it was a cake plate, and it was Autumn Leaf Jewel Tea made by Hall China, and it sold for $13.99 plus shipping. Next up, we have, this was my first sports card sale. I am getting ready to launch over the year sports, so just make sure you guys are staying tuned in, because it's going to be amazing. I've been stockpiling a whole bunch of crazy memorabilia, apparel, and sports cards, and I'm going to just be like, boom, launch over the year sports. It's going to be crazy. I'm super excited. Anyways, this was a 2020 Top Series 1 Yordan Alvarez photo variation rookie card. So for those of you that are into the sports cards, always make sure you're hip to the photo variation cards, because those can fetch you good money. So I probably could have held on to this card as an investment for a long time, But you know, there's some that I'm gonna hold, some that I'm gonna sell. It's part of my strategy right now. So this sold for $99.99. I actually pulled this card out of a pack that I opened, so I only had, you know, a few bucks into it. So I was pretty stoked about that. Next up was another snapback hat. This was a vintage 90s USS Kitty Hawk CV63 snapback hat. Don't tread on me. And it sold for $25 plus shipping. Next, we have some Wade. We've been selling some Wade lately. If you guys have been paying attention, Wade is made in Ireland. So this was a vintage Wade Irish porcelain shamrock mini sugar bowl. And then I put it together with a saucer and made like my own little sort of combination because it fit really pretty. I paid $1 for these two pieces total, and it sold for $19.99 plus shipping. And the last thing we have that sold on eBay was this antique Fenton glass. Two Flowers is the name of the pattern. It was carnival glass, and it was a blue colored carnival glass. And it was the best way to describe this is the feet. So in carnival glass, the different type of feet that the piece all have different names. So these are referred to as spatula. So it's a spatula footed bowl. And this one was really, really gorgeous. I'm surprised it didn't have more value, but still, I'm not mad. It sold for good money considering. So I got $40 plus shipping for that bowl. So that is everything that's sold on eBay. Now we're going to go ahead and jump into Mercari. All right, so Mercari for this time period was pretty slow. Mercari is one of the craziest waves of all the platforms. Like when it's on, it is on, and when it's not, it is not. So we made one sale. It was this really cool hat snapback. On the front, it said South Dakota is big cock country. And then it has like the pheasant bird on the front. There's a lot of interest in this hat across all the platforms, but it did sell on Mercari first, and I took an offer for $22. I was in on that hat for like $1.67 to $2.50, somewhere in that range. So that's everything that's sold on Mercari. Now we're going to go ahead and show you guys everything that's sold on Etsy. All right, so we do have some more sales, and now we are talking Etsy. So first thing that sold on Etsy during this time frame was a vintage Anchor Hawking Fire King Jadeite saucer in the pattern Alice. Now remember, anything Jadeite is always very popular. Excuse me, I've got a whole lot of this stuff basically for pennies on the dollar. So I just sold them off individually because, you know, sometimes they break, and sometimes, you know, people have a cup and want a saucer, so things of that nature. So the buyer was all in for this saucer for $13.57. And next up, more carnival glass. We did sell a lot of carnival glass during this period, which is kind of interesting. This one was a vintage imperial glass purple carnival glass. The name of the pattern was Windmill. It was a 7.5-inch ruffled bowl, and the buyer was all in for $38.58 and left us really nice feedback. The dish I ordered is gorgeous, and it was packaged very well and arrived safely and quickly. Thank you. No, thank you. Next up, Peter Rabbit. So anything Peter Rabbit, always buy. That's first. Number two is Besic. Anything Besic, you always want to buy. Now that is spelled Beswick. Their stuff is really nice, especially the older stuff can fetch a lot of money. So this vintage Besic, Beatrix Potter Peter Rabbit figurine. Wow. Try to say that 5 times fast. Besic Beatrix Potter Peter Rabbit figurine. So the buyer was all in for that for $53.02. Josie and I picked that up on our one of our yard sale adventure trips, and I paid, I think it was $1 for it, $1 or $2. So that was a great flip. Next up was this vintage Fenton glass opalescent hobnail small pitcher. This is French opalescent, and this sold for $44.32. The buyer was all in for it. Excuse me. This is a really gorgeous piece. I can't believe that it lasted as long as it did. The next thing that we have is another older piece. This was a sugar and creamer, vintage Sango sugar and creamer. The name of the pattern was Florentine, and it sold for, the buyer was all in for $23.03. The next thing that we sold was this vintage blue Sun Tea beverage dispenser. I went on this like, I had bought a couple of these and then they sold like crazy instantly, and I was like, man, this is insane. So I just started buying all the Sun Tea dispensers I could find, and then it just like died. And I sold a couple recently, but if you could find these for really cheap, I would suggest picking them up. Like, I mean, cheap like $1, $2, because it's hit or miss. I guess usually it depends on the design and like how nice a condition and the functionality all goes together. But this one, the buyer was all in for $33.14. And we have our first Jasperware sightings of the evening. This was a sugar and creamer. They were listed separately. They are Wedgwood cream on pale blue Jasperware. And the buyer was all in for both of these gorgeous pieces for a total of $77.70. So once again, guys, be on the lookout for Jasperware. It is continuing to be a really hot seller right now, and it is not showing any signs of slowing down, as you'll continue to see as these what sold videos keep coming out. So I've been doing pretty good, selling a couple of hats on Etsy every week pretty much. This one was really dope. I really like this hat. It was a vintage 1980s Chrysler. So it had the Chrysler symbol right here, and it said Master Technician inside the Chrysler symbol. And then it had the scrambled eggs on the top. It was made in the USA. It was like this real like old school vintage retro brown. And the buyer was all in on that hat for $30.97. Next we have some more Fenton. This was a really gorgeous piece. Vintage Fenton glass. Victorian Roses was the name of the pattern. It was on like a satin white glass, like with a matte finish. It was a ribbed melon vase, and it was hand painted, and it was about 5.5 inches tall. And the buyer was all in on that piece for $41.20. And we have some more Pyrex. We are back down to the lowest amount of Pyrex that we've had in inventory since the time when Bon Appetit did that article on our Etsy store, and we literally ran completely out of Pyrex. So I'm on the hunt. I'm always on the hunt, excuse me. I'm always on the hunt for Pyrex, but like my eyes are like, I'm buying any Pyrex I see right now just to fill the shelves of Pyrex. But this is a really interesting piece of Pyrex. This was a piece of Pyrex that was made for a hotel, and I don't have that piece on there right now. I don't know why I don't have the name of the hotel. Let me see if I can blow this up really quick and check for you guys. I think it was Bradford was the name of the hotel. You can see it on the screen, but for some reason I don't have it in my personal slideshow. The next thing that sold was this vintage Libby glass. Oh, but anyways, so I don't even know how much it sold for, but it'll all be on the screen for you guys. Sorry about that. So we're gonna move to the next piece. The next piece that sold was this really cool carafe. It was made by Libby Glass, and it was the wildlife. It had the bald eagle on it, and it sold. The buyer was all in for $17.41. Next, we had a couple of pieces. This one buyer bought 3 pieces. The first piece was this really cool like tin salad tray, and then she bought a individual real small mini tin, and then 2 mini tins together. And these tins were really rusted, but you know, that's what she was looking for. So sometimes don't be afraid and don't shy away from buying a tin if it's not in perfect condition, because some people like that patina, that roughness, that old look. So she left us great feedback. These are just great. Whew. I even aged, I don't know what she wrote there, to get the really rusty, okay, I know what she wrote now. These are just great. I even managed to get the really rusty one opened without any damage. Thanks so much. Excuse me. And she was all in for $50.47. The next thing that sold was this vintage uranium glass ribbed syrup dispenser. Uranium glass is one of our top sellers. We will always sell uranium glass. Every week we make uranium glass sales, and the buyer was all in on this piece for $42.84. And another piece of Pyrex sold. This one I have in front of me so I can tell you. It was a vintage Pyrex sandalwood Cinderella round casserole 473. And the buyer was all in for $19.83, and she left us really nice feedback. Arrived safely today due to the perfect packaging, arrived safely today due to the perfect packing. The effort you took in keeping my order safe made me very happy. Thank you. No, thank you. And we have more Jasperware. Now we have two pieces of Jasperware that sold to the same person. These are both green. One was a Jasperware 8-inch round sacrifice bowl. Now that is one of the more popular pieces, especially in the variety of colors that you can find. And then the other piece was a Wedgwood Jasperware cream on green large spiked knob, and it was like a trinket box or a jewelry box, and it was the grapevine around it. And the buyer was all in for those two pieces for $149.14. And believe it or not, we got another piece of Jasperware. This is a very unique pattern and color. This is the vintage Wedgwood terracotta on primrose. So primrose is the yellow and the terracotta is the pattern that's on top of that. And it was the bamboo Jasperware, and this was a sugar bowl. And the buyer was all in for $55.35. And they left us awesome feedback. Beautiful piece in excellent condition. It was wrapped superbly for shipping. That was a really nice piece. And we have another piece of Pyrex. This is a refrigerator dish, vintage Pyrex red refrigerator dish 501. The buyer was all in for $25.95. And the majority of that was shipping, as you can see on the screen. I'm pretty sure this shipped out to Washington. And some more uranium glass. This was a really cool piece. This was vintage Fenton glass lime satin uranium glass. It was an 8.5-inch tall drape vase, and the buyer was really happy as well. Just as beautiful in person as in the photos. Quick shipping, great condition, and I appreciate the careful packaging. The buyer was all in on that piece for $36.27. And another piece of Pyrex sold. So you can see Pyrex, uranium glass, Wedgwood Jasperware. Those are hot things during this week of sales. This was a vintage Pyrex Woodland Cinderella round casserole 472, and the buyer was all in on that piece of Pyrex for $21.10. Next up, we had this really interesting old school Jeanette depression glass condiment jar with lid. It was a little condiment jar, and the buyer was all in for $20.60 on that. They also left us really nice feedback. Sweet little jar, fast shipping, and perfect packing. Not a nick on it. This is one of my all-time favorite shops. You've got to look here often. Thank you very much for that feedback. And this was a really interesting piece. I've had it for a long time. I'm surprised it lasted as long as it did. This is a vintage Noritake 175. It was gold flowers and scroll on cream. It's a one-piece chip and dip set. So the little bowl was basically connected to the larger plate. And the buyer was all in for $37.16 on that. So that is everything that's sold on Etsy during this time frame. Now I'm going to show you a couple of quick sales from Grailed. All right. So Grailed, better than the last video you guys saw, but still a little slow. I'm starting to run out of these vintage NASCAR shirts that I got. If you haven't seen that video, I'll put a link up top. I mean, it was a crazy lot. It was one of my first like bigger buys, and it's paid off tremendously. And this was the NASCAR Vintage 90s Dale Earnhardt, gotta be the 3. Vintage tee, and the buyer was all in for $50 on that shirt. The next thing that sold was this vintage 90s St. Louis Cardinals snapback trucker hat, baseball cap. It had a little bit of damage on the side of the brim right here. The buyer was all in for $23. The next hat that sold was this vintage 90s trucker hat, and it was green. Cernock was talking about it. I think it was on one of our lives, but he was talking about how green hats are, for some reason, super popular, especially on Grailed. So I was going to try and go through my hats and list as many of those green hats as I possibly can. This one said supervisor, assistant manager, and it sold for $20. The next thing that sold was these pair of shoes that I picked up when Josie and I met up with Cernock at the flea market. These were Cloverdale Park, which are basketball courts here in Baltimore, Maryland. And these were Air Force Ones. They were in really good condition. I paid $5 for them, and they sold for $45. So that wraps it up. That is everything that sold across all of the platforms. I want to thank you guys for tuning in. Hopefully, I'm going to be dropping some even different videos in the next couple of days. I'm going to try to go to the auction tomorrow night and see if I can pick up some goodies. So hopefully, I'll have a haul video from that. And then Saturday morning, Josie and I are going to a yard sale that I previously went to and bought a whole bunch of stuff. The guy emailed me and said that they're pulling out some even nicer things. So it's going to be a little bit more expensive, but hopefully I can pick up some really cool things for our live sale on Monday. I want to thank you guys. I hope you guys learned some new things this week. If not some new things, you learned that the things I've been talking about are still hot and still selling. I want to thank everybody for all their love and support. We have been slowly growing the YouTube channel. I think we just cracked 40,000 views, so that was pretty cool. We're about 300 subscribers away from, well, I guess a little bit less than that. 230 subscribers away from 2,000. So that's the next goal we're trying to reach, and we're just going to keep trying to push and bring you guys some more content. It's just been kind of difficult lately. My Dukes has been... You know, I live in D.C. I drive to Maryland to my mom's house to do work, and it's just she's redoing the kitchen upstairs, and I've just been trying to list, and it's just like so much going on. I know you guys don't want to hear that. No excuses. So I'm really going to work hard to try and get you guys some more valuable content that you that is useful to you all as a viewer. So that's it. I'm going to stop rambling. Don't forget to watch the videos around my face, and we will see you guys next time.